Once upon a time, Fire Emblem Three Houses was still nowhere to be seen. In fact, we knew next to nothing about the next Fire Emblem, till one fateful day, E3 2018. The trailer for Fire Emblem Three Houses dropped on June 12th. It was intriguing, to say the least. I'll be honest, it didn't compare that close to Fire Emblem Fates' or Echoes' first trailer, but what it did show were things to be excited about. New mechanics, new tools to play with, instructing your allies, exploring areas, and so on. And hey, it even had a name for its world. But have you noticed, when comparing this first trailer to the actual game we got, most of what this trailer advertises is not in the game, or had been significantly changed by the game's second trailer during Nintendo Direct 2019. For example, the command menu is quite different between then and now. Magic, and more importantly, formations are not there anymore. Even instructing mechanics showcased in this trailer never ended up being in the game. In this video, we compare Three Houses' first game trailer from E3 2018, its second trailer from Nintendo Direct 2019, to the actual game itself. To preface, it's totally normal for games to end up being not as they first appear, especially when there's a long time between game trailers and the game itself. But the amount of changes seen in Three Houses between its first public appearance and its final state is surprising, to say the least. I previously covered the cut content in Three Houses, and it took nearly 30 minutes to cover most of the important bits. There were a lot of ideas that Intelligent Systems and Koei Tecmo had for this game, and similarly, a lot of changes occurred between trailers and the game itself. Let's first look at the E3 2018 trailer. We're going to start with the actual location differences. The E3 2018 trailer opens up with a slow pan of the world map, with a bunch of former names of the locations we've all come to understand. Some of these pre-release trailer names are, well, pretty silly. What's interesting is that not only are most of these names better off in the actual game, like changing Garg-Mach to Garreg-Mach, Bladad to Blathid, Fjordarius to Fraldarius, and so on, many locations were also repositioned. For example, Aramid was a lake and a comparatively smaller river. It was then changed into the very long, sprawling river we're familiar with. Brianak Plateau was repositioned and rotated. Derger, Row, and Regan were also repositioned. Ordelia and Arundel weren't even named in this trailer at all. It's interesting to think about why these areas were renamed and relocated in particular. Without delving too deep into theory crafting, the repositioned and actual named choices are all story relevant. It would probably be weird to have a character as relevant as Lord Arundel to be named Volkard von Arundel and not have a territory of which his last name is based on. I'm not sure why Ordelia would be missing, unless Lysithea and her character weren't really a thing during the making of this map, or she was a thing and her backstory wasn't developed yet. I'm not sure. Let's not look into it that much. There's also a river separating Arundel and Gaspard now. Row was significantly relocated closer to the Empire, but still on the Kingdom's side. Regan is pushed much lower than where it used to be. In my opinion, the Aramid River change is the most interesting. It being a very long lake now makes more sense story-wise, as crossing the river over the Great Bridge of Myrddin is in every route. This area is the one link between the Alliance and the Empire. They always make a point of needing to cross it. In the old map, it looks like you technically don't even need to cross it, as the terrain implies you can stick near the mountains at Garreg-Mach and get to the Alliance that way. Whereas the game itself says you can only get there through the bridge, as crossing through the mountains is too difficult. So that change makes sense. As for the other locations, I guess they thought it was best for the story. Let's move on to gameplay differences. After the speech about the goddess and some cutscenes, we are introduced to Three Houses' pre-release gameplay, and already there are significant differences. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see these changes, but of course there is the font change. Christina V is voicing Edelgard in this trailer instead of Tara Platt, who would go on to voice her in the final game. For those curious, because I know this was at least a big point of intrigue at the time, I've read online theories as to what happened in this case, but it's best not to theorize. Casting changes happen a lot of the times in this industry, so sometimes business is business, I guess.
Go ahead, give me orders.
Go ahead, give me orders is never actually a line uttered by Edelgard. The command menu is really different. Attack and magic are separated, but given that Edelgard only has a steel axe in her inventory, she was also wielding a 1-2 range spell, presumably fire, this early on. The final game has offensive magic in the attack command. Also, formation is its own command. Formations, if Geralt's now defunct quotes are any indication,
the battle will be easier if we make full use of our formations, but be wary of the foe's formations as well. Whether it's more strategic to create or disband a formation depends on the situation. Plan carefully. Also, Pay heed to the enemy soldiers when you fight. Their strength can differ by the types of soldiers in their formation.
Perhaps this is an early version or the name of gambits. Formation and gambit are in the same place in the command menu anyway. The map sprite used by her has blonde hair and her class is called Aristocrat instead of a noble. Weapons in this trailer have varyingly different durability, and Forest Avoid got changed from 10 avoid to plus 30 and plus 1 defense, so that's pretty big. And in the combat forecast, Edelgard has Vantage. Also, she has 5 move. This Edelgard is busted. Mercedes has brown hair and a generic model. In fact, every character not named Byleth, Edelgard, Dimitri, Claude, or Hanneman, or Manuela, uses a generic model. And assuming this is the Black Eagles, there's an Armor Knight on our team for some reason. There's some minor battle trivia like Attack being renamed to Might, and stuff like that. Dimitri and Claude fighting Kingdom soldiers take place in Chapter 3 during Lenato's rebellion. So these are actually Gaspar soldiers and militia instead of actual Kingdom soldiers. At 55 seconds, we get some more battle stuff. Hubert is of course rocking the generic mage look, and this seems to be the mock battle? I guess the formations are all kinda different. Hanneman is set up perfectly alongside Hilda, Lorenz, and strangely, Ashe. Which naturally you would think this means that Ashe was originally part of the Golden Deer, but given that Ashe is supposed to be from Gaspar, which is pretty story relevant and also very far away from the Alliance, I'm not sure. Maybe Ashe was a placeholder for Ignatz? To be completely honest, this whole sequence is a mystery. Hilda, beta portrait by the way, is a level 2 assassin? I guess maybe she's supposed to be a thief and this is the model they used, but she can also counter Byleth at 1 range despite having no close counter skill. All in all, this scene feels different enough for me to believe that Koei Tecmo just threw something together way before they had the mock battle set in stone and told another dev to hit record to play it for the trailer. Then they got an English developer to play the exact same way. If you compare both trailers, the English and the Japanese one, the numbers actually slightly vary. That or this whole battle is weirdly staged to showcase specific actions, but hey, chapter overhauls happen. Who knows why it all looks the way it does. Moving on from the battle clips, Byleth is running around the monastery and wow, the lighting and shading looks more detailed than in the actual game. Then Edelgard talks about it being time for her training and a dialogue option comes up, to train in sword skills or axe skills. This may have been an early version of instructing students in between manually teaching them, like when students come up to you asking about skill-focused changes and whatnot, because this never happens in the game itself. In the game, you can choose any combinations of goals for the students, whereas this scene makes it seem like you can only pick one of only 2 options. Immediately after, we cut to Seiros and Nemesis in the animated cutscene, and there is no blood on the sword of the creator. I guess they wanted to keep it PG. Transition into another battle with Dimitri using a formation. This transition from battalions moving into a formation, triangular in this case, never happens. Was this triangle formation thing something Geralt used to allude to in his removed dialogue about formations? Also, enemies get sent flying when they're hit, which also doesn't happen anymore. Even things like critical cut-ins are different in this trailer. Then they briefly show Claude fighting a golem in the Holy Tomb, which is a map that sort of made it into the game. I mean, in Rhea's Paralog, you do get to fight golems in it, but the upgraded golden versions instead. So all in all, this trailer is significantly different and, well, worse than the game. Obviously. A lot of missing assets, probably more beta portraits than just Mercedes and Hilda, a noticeably different UI, and some mechanics just seem to function significantly differently. But hey, even the Nintendo Direct 2019 trailer, which premiered on February 13th, 2019, had notable differences compared to its predecessor. For example, the entire world map matches exactly with the game we got. Not only that, but at this point, the rest of the trailer's gameplay is pretty one-to-one with the actual game. There's some trivial stuff like certain dialogue lines being very slightly changed though, formations are axed and gambits are now in the command menu along with their battalion stamina. Combat arts are renamed to arts, only to be renamed back into combat arts upon release. There's a slight change in starting positions in Chapter 1 for Edelgard and some enemies present on the map as well. Day became daytime, flatland became plain, ATK became attack in the command menu, def instead of protection, and so on. They gave Petra 100 crit on this bandit, which is obviously set up for display purposes. Then we get into some tournament gameplay. Ferdinand and Sylvain showcase the tournament minigame, and interestingly, there's no HP restoration option in this trailer. They are also missing their personal skills. Then we have some instructing going on. Similar to the label differences between this trailer and the final game, the instruction menu also has labels that would be changed. Here is a list of a lot of them. There are more changes like this that occur throughout. They're all positive changes in my opinion. It's a clear effort to localize the game further than even at the E3 2019 trailer. There's a gaudy, dark green dialogue box indicating tutoring and auto-tutor costs, which are redundant in hindsight, so it's good that they got it removed. Byleth is supposed to have professor expertise in brawling and not axes, so I suppose they wanted to change this to make use of Byleth's ranks relative to his promoted class. In the exam menu, when Edelgard is going to certify into Brigand, there's no base stat comparison, and there's no availability for Lord or Pegasus Knights in the promotion menu either. She still has blonde hair in her icons though. The Armor Knight has a lance icon instead of an axe, and there are other text changes from then to now. In Chapter 5, the Crest Stone of Gautier weapon used by Miklon's monster form has the Brawling Weapon icon, which, funny enough, is actually what Crest Stone weapons are qualified as in the game. I'm not joking. Basically, they just didn't have a Crest Stone icon ready yet. As an aside, this may actually explain why Fistbreaker ended up being unused in the game. As a reminder, Fistbreaker was originally supposed to be the ability attained after reaching B in bows, until it wasn't, and it was removed entirely. But equal parts ridiculous and hilarious is that if you assign this skill to a character via hacking, it actually activates against monster weapons. Great work, Koei Tecmo. I guess now we know why Fistbreaker was removed. They thought we'd never find out. Oh my goodness. Finally, as a quick mention, when Treehouse did a gameplay video in 2019, any different movement types based off a class change would remove the current battalion. Like here when Ferdinand reclasses from Cavalier into Brigand, this was changed so the only limit was flyers can only have flying battalions. So clearly in all these months between trailers, a lot changed. All the names were localized, and several areas were relocated. UI elements became what we mostly come to know now. Barring a lot of text changes, what you see in the 2019 trailer is what you get. Even the lighting is actually what we got this time around. It's pretty crazy to look back on both of these trailers, and how even with all the sweeping changes from 2018 to 2019, they weren't done working on the game yet. These changes, combined with the sheer volume of cut content discussed in my most recent Three Houses video, really makes me wonder what happened with the development of this game. That will wrap things up for this week's Fire Emblem video. If you liked it, please show your support by liking and commenting down your thoughts. Let me know what you think about all these changes. Is there one in particular that surprised you? I want to give a big thanks to everyone who recently subscribed as well. Before the last video, the channel was 400 subscribers away from 85,000. Now the channel has 85.3. Hitting that milestone felt great, and I'm thankful for all the new folks coming in. If you're someone watching who is unsubscribed, please consider doing so. I also want to thank my patrons, Parnholm, Melissa Farmer, and Adelaide, and especially my $40 patrons, Furmuzzle, Michael Taylor, Prime Fusion, Sleepy Sky, Artorius, and Stephen Rupp. If you want to support me through Patreon, please check the link below. We're a small community, but we have fun. Deuces.
You